Good evening, everyone. And sorry to keep you waiting, but I can see that you're enjoying the conversation already, which is a good sign. At the end of probably already a long 10 days, but also a long day today, we thought we'd keep it a bit lively and have you all standing, which also means we can accommodate a larger crowd. So thank you for bearing with us in what I trust will be a very exciting hour of interventions on the SOFF. My name is Maarten van Aalst. I'm Director General of KNMI, the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute. Very fortunate to be involved in this initiative, both in some of its thinking in the World Meteorological Organization, but now also in providing peer support to some of our sister meteorological agencies around the world. And we'll be hearing more about that in the run of show as we go through today. So this event is organized by the Systematic Observations Financing Facility, and I'm very sad to say that their director, Marcus Repnik, is not with us today because he fell ill, but we'll have Pauline stand in for him. So no doubt the content will be just fine, but we're all thinking of Marcus and wishing him well in case he's watching online. So let's start right away with Paula Trepchik and particularly also Selwyn Hart. A very warm welcome to you to tell us a bit about the origins of SOFF and also how it fits in the broader UN aspirations on climate and particularly also the UN Secretary General's Early Warning for All initiative. Paula and Selwyn, please.
Thank you so much and good afternoon, everyone. I really don't mind standing, but I want to thank all of you not only for joining this event, but for your overwhelming support to this important initiative of the Secretary General. Just over a year and a half ago, in March 2023, just ahead of COP27, the Secretary General decided to announce this global initiative aimed at delivering climate justice to those on the front lines of the climate crisis. We know that early warning systems are proven cost-effective tool for saving lives and protecting livelihoods. But the reality is that half of our world, in a world of plenty, half of our world still lacks access. And it exposes the inequality and divisions we see in our world. 6 out of every 10 persons in Africa don't have access to an early warning system, despite their negligible contribution to the climate crisis. Small island developing states and least developed countries, 2/3 lack access to an effective early warning system. And we can do better. This initiative has proven since its launch that we are all willing and also capable of delivering at the pace and scale needed to effectively tackle this problem. I'm extremely proud of the work of our colleagues at SOFF. I'm proud of the work of our colleagues at WMO, UNDR, IFRC, ITU, and all of the other entities that have rallied behind this initiative. SOFF has already provided support to over 60 countries. And we know that the services provided by SOFF are absolutely fundamental to the delivery of effective early warning systems across the early warning system value chain. But colleagues, let's not get complacent. We know that the climate crisis will get worse. This year was the warmest on record. We're set to break every known record on climate, and all indicators are trending in the wrong direction. But on this one issue, let us prove that we can unite, we can coordinate, and we can collaborate to deliver at the pace and scale that is needed. We can get this done by 2027. It will require all of us, and believe me, we are pushing the UN system to work as one and deliver as one. And it's working. We have our ups and downs, but it's working. But it will require all of you, all of us, to work collectively, hand in hand. So my message is very simple. We can get this done. Let's do it. Let's roll up our sleeves. And next year, when we come back here, let us prove and demonstrate that significant efforts and actions have been taken to deliver this cost-effective, proven tool to those on the front lines of the climate crisis. And thank all of you for your outstanding support.
Thank you, Selwyn, for your personal leadership on this as well, and of course your bosses in making this all happen. It's not trivial. Paula, you had some numbers to share with us on where we stand today.
Thank you so much for coming today to this very different event. I hope you're comfortable standing. Thanks so much, Mats, for coming, and thanks, Selwyn, for your leadership with SOFF in general. We're very pleased that today we are actually launching our very first SOFF action report. So, as you know, we are not very old, and you will see that on the website and a PDF, thank you, and a PDF to read through what SOFF has achieved in the 1.5 years that we are operating. I want to share with you a few numbers out of this report. First of all, SOFF has one purpose. SOFF is a specialized climate fund that supports countries in collecting basic weather and climate data to achieve GBON compliance, the Global Basic Observing Network. I hope I used the acronym right. This is an internationally agreed standard of what countries should collect, but also exchange, and it's mandatory since January. Unfortunately, SIDS, LDCs, and lower middle income countries are only sharing 7% of the data. So this is a huge gap that SOFF helps countries to close. In 1.5 years, we've already gathered 72 partners. We have governments, we have UN organizations, multilateral funds, major climate funds, a few of you here today, to work together to close the basic weather and climate data gap. As I said, we are 1.5 years old. We opened doors in July 2022. And as you've said, Selwyn, we've already provided support for 60 countries in the first phase, the readiness phase. And out of these 60 countries, in record speed, 6 are already in the second out of 3 phases. Only last week they got investment funding approved, and these are Belize, Kiribati, Maldives, Mozambique, Rwanda, and South Sudan. So this is great work that the peer advisors, the countries, and the implementing entities have already done. And we've calculated, you've seen that we're working quite fast and at scale, that it takes only 3.7 months from getting a country programmed to actually receiving funds. And this is, in my opinion, very fast. But we can't do this without money, to be frank. Our funding target is $400 million by 2027 as part of the Early Warnings for All Executive Action Plan. And so far we have raised 73 million, and we have many of the donors here today, so thank you so much for coming and already pledging to close this data gap together. But we need all of you to continue working together, mobilize more funds and more partnership so we can actually achieve what SOFF sets out to do. So thank you so much for coming, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. Any final thoughts?
There's a funding gap. And I really encourage all of you to support this initiative. Marcus and all of the other colleagues at SOFF have been so flexible, so creative in terms of supporting this initiative. So my encouragement to all of you really is to support this initiative and support this coordinated effort. Unfortunately, I have to go. There's some other stuff happening at this COP, but I look forward really over the course of the coming year to continuing to work with all of you. As I said before, we can get this done. We can get this done, and we must get it done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selwyn, for joining us, and thank you, Paula, for sharing those exciting numbers, which demonstrate that there is something real here. And of course, Selwyn was talking about early warnings for all, and people often ask me, but this is about systematic observations. Isn't that just a scientist thing? Now, I am an atmospheric scientist by background, and I love the numbers that SOFF is generating, and it is exciting from a scientific perspective. But before I came to KNMI, I was working with the International Red Cross. And I know how badly the early warning systems are lacking, especially in the most vulnerable places. How many lives we can save if we indeed have that data and if we turn it into early warnings in time. Just earlier this week, I was at the European Centre for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts, and their forecasts for Europe, but also for the whole world, are getting better with every single observation being made available through the SOFF. In turn, we're now making their observations available to every SOFF country and eventually to every country around the world. So everyone is benefiting, but it's fitting that we start with the most vulnerable. But we need it as a partnership of equals, and that is so nice about this special fund. Now, a fund cannot operate without funding, and I'm very grateful that we have a couple of very important funders around the table here today. We're actually in the Benelux Pavilion, so thank you for hosting us, but also thank you to several Benelux countries for being the very first funders of the SOFF and for making this all possible, along with many others. And it's actually a pleasure in that light to start introducing you to my very own minister, my boss. We were talking about Selwyn's boss before, but Mark Harbour's Minister of Water and Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands. It's great to first hear a few words from you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, dear SOFF friends. A little over a year ago, September 14 last year, Professor Petteri Talas, the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, visited me in The Hague and asked us to consider participating in this systematic observations financing facility. I'll pronounce it once, it's just SOFF. And what a lot of progress has been made since then. At the UN Water Conference in New York earlier this year, the Netherlands launched an initiative in East Africa entitled Water at the Heart of Climate Action. This project will demonstrate how better observations lead to better extreme weather warnings for people in vulnerable areas. This will enable an early response and ultimately save lives and livelihoods. That's why SOFF is such an integral part of this project. It is essential to integrate partners around the globe into this early warning and early action system. And that's what Water at the Heart does. How does it work? Data gaps have a global effect. The solutions do too. Peer support is at the core of this system. Sharing observations and data internationally, building a knowledge multiplier that will eventually save lives. Maarten's Dutch Meteorological Institute, KNMI, is already providing this kind of peer support to 5 SOFF countries: São Tomé and Príncipe, Cabo Verde, Senegal, Uganda, and Suriname. To achieve success, it's important to have long-term twinning relations. There are no quick fixes. And so I call on all the other countries represented here today to become active in the SOFF process too. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to tell you that the Netherlands contributed a substantial amount of that 73 million, 50 million euros over the next 5 years. I have been impressed by the speed, the quality and the impact of the SOFF process. And the Netherlands is determined to keep up because, as we all know, there is no time to waste. After all, climate change and extreme weather are not going to wait for us to take action. So I count on all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I know, like Selwyn, you have to go soon. So thank you for joining us and for those warm words and the encouragement, I think, to all to indeed join this group of friends of SOFF. I think our Vice Minister, your colleague, the Minister of Finance, already said here at COP this sounds like such a no-brainer. Why didn't we do this much earlier? And I think that's a good summary. Thank you again for making the no-brainer a reality and for your support. And we'll go straight then to your colleague from Belgium, Zakia Katabi, who is also among the first supporters of SOFF. Of course, nice to join you as well in the Benelux Pavilion. You were also one of the early supporters. What made you so exciting about SOFF?
Allow me first to thank the SOFF Secretary for enabling this event. This is an excellent opportunity to give a boost to our collaboration and to foster future partnerships. So together we can really rely more partners around early warnings for all. Belgium considers SOFF to be a key delivery vehicle in the first stage of the early warnings value chain. It can help close the climate and weather data gaps across the world. This will enable better weather forecasts and climate projections, and thus more effective climate adaptation action, efforts to minimize material loss and life-saving initiatives. As such, SOFF's action fit perfectly well within the approach of Belgium's international climate action. We apply a clear focus on adaptation and addressing the urgent needs of the most vulnerable communities. In doing so, we are determined to minimize loss and damage, which disproportionately hits these vulnerable communities. And we also value SOFF's position within the multilateral climate finance architecture. This is clearly complementary between SOFF and the other multilateral climate funds, like, for example, the Green Climate Fund and Global Environment Facility, to which Belgium also contributes significantly. So long life to SOFF.
Thank you so much, both for your contribution and for hosting us at your pavilion. Thank you. So we'll then continue to Jochen Flasbart, the State Secretary in the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany. Oh, there you are. Sorry, didn't see you yet. Maybe the question would be for you also the connection to loss and damage and your contribution to the Loss and Damage Fund here. How is SOFF related?
Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me here as well. There were two versions of possible speaking points for me in case we would not have decided on the Loss and Damage Fund yet, or in case we did. And as you know, we did, and we were very happy to play a role there and to announce first capitalization of $200 million together with UAE. I think that was, for me, a really lucky moment because we got out of all these old boring discussions who is going to be responsible for payments or not. We simply have to show leadership. And now we do have a landscape for loss and damage. And usually I say that we have on top the need for mitigation, and the less we do for mitigation, the more we have to do for adaptation, and the less we do for adaptation, the more we have to do for loss and damage. But the early warning systems are sitting between the adaptation piece and the loss and damage piece, because of course we can reduce the damage if people around the globe everywhere are benefiting from early warning systems. And that is how we see that the SOFF is fitting to this landscape. That is why we are politically so supportive to the SOFF, that we are technically, through our German weather service, Deutscher Wetterdienst, supporting the SOFF implementation, that we see the links to the Loss and Damage Fund, and I'm really happy that the L&D decision makes a link to the SOFF as well as to the Global Shield. And I think with this comprehensive approach, we can meet the people's needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm not know if I'm speaking on behalf of my government here, but I do think one thing that you're pointing at is that link between what we do on loss and damage and what we need to do on adaptation. And indeed, the data will be critical for that, but also the sort of partnerships that we build here are critical for that. So thank you for that encouragement. We were going to have the Irish Minister, Eamon Ryan, here on stage, but unfortunately he's unable to be here. But we have Orla Kilcullen, Deputy Director, in Ireland, speaking on his behalf to us. So Ireland's been an important supporter as well. So your words, please.
Thanks very much. And I'm glad to see I've been promoted. I'll tell the Minister when I get back I'm now his deputy. So yeah, Ireland was one of the early contributors to SOFF. And one of the reasons that we were is that we really like the element of the capacity building and the system strengthening. The funding is hugely important, but the capacity element is just critical in terms of the people and the technology. And it's that whole element of the peer support, which is something that we particularly value as well. And I know our colleagues in Met Éireann are very keen to get more involved in the peer network support. I come from a very agriculture-based society, so we know how important accurate weather predictions and climate predictions are for agricultural economies. And through all of our international development programming, it's a message that we hear constantly from smallholder farming communities. They need to have access to better quality data so they know what to plant, when to plant it, when to harvest and so on, so that we can really help them build their resilience and adapt to the conditions. So we really see this as an incredibly important initiative. We would like to commend SOFF on you're a very young organisation, but you've achieved an incredible amount in the time that you have, and we're very happy to continue supporting, and we'd like to announce an additional pledge of €1 million on top of what we had already pledged to SOFF for 2024, because we really just value the speed at which you're able to support countries and yeah, to make a real difference and impact on the ground. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you so much, and I hope everyone is listening. That's setting a good example. Anyone? I'll encourage you to think about that. But thank you so much, Ireland. And I was with my colleague from Ireland, actually, in that ECMWF meeting I was mentioning earlier, and we were discussing, indeed, he is also now the Vice President of the World Meteorological Organization. We were discussing the importance of working together towards these goals, but also what it takes, even in our own countries, to build these early warning systems, which go beyond just creating the best observations or turning them into the best forecasts of the hazards. It also requires a sort of collaborations. And that is particularly what we need to do in our own countries, but also around the world, and where some of the peer support roles also come in. So I'm very excited now to go to the action phase of this side event and hear from a couple of colleagues on how we work together in SOFF, how this actually works in practice. And we have two colleagues, Aderito Aramuj, the Director General of the National Institute of Meteorology in Mozambique, and Isham Abadar, the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Weather Service. And they are collaborating, of course, within their own region. Mozambique has been one of the very first countries benefiting from SOFF, working on SOFF. And South Africa has been supporting and working together in the region. So if you could share your experiences and perspectives from that very practical experience, which, as we saw in the numbers, is really already happening today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Well, as you know, we are 13 countries, only 60 countries were succeed, which means that their work that was done for these 6. But I'm going to present what we have done in Mozambique. We know that the country is vulnerable, one of the most vulnerable countries in the world. Then we know that for the future, those meteorological events, they will become more extreme. So two sides. One is that we needed to obey and follow the rules for adaptation. Another, taking in consideration that we cannot move the country from the place where is it to allocate in the safe place. So we needed to adaptation and go for resilience. In this regard, 4 commitments we did in Mozambique so that we'll come with this success. First is leadership, not being boss, but be leader. I was leading the team that we came with all the orientation from the peer advisor so that we could come together with the World Food Program. Second, team working. The team, we must have a team that knows why are we doing this? Why are we doing all the requests that the peer review is requesting? Number 3, the commitment of the country, commitment of the institution. So the workers, the team workers must know what's the vision in terms of, for instance, for these soft issues that we are talking about. Last but not least, the synergy. The way we work with the peer advisor team, World Food Program team, was very, very encouraged so that we came up on time with all this planning that end up with the allocation of these 7.4 million for Mozambique. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now we have a very proud tradition in the meteorological world of collaborating, and we need to collaborate because we need each other's data to be able to do our work. And you've been providing peer support already to Mozambique, but also to several of the islands in the Indian Ocean. What's your experience?
Good evening. Thank you very much. It hasn't been an easy ride, I can tell you that much. So one of the things is as Mr. Ramuj has mentioned, is there has to be collaboration. And what we found is that the collaboration between the beneficiary country, the peer advisor, and also the implementing agent is very, very important. And it has to happen at every single phase of whether it's the gap analysis, the contribution plan, or the actual implementation. And I think that's part of the reason why we got to where we got so fast. The report was a 90-page report, and I think we've done it in record time. But I think also you need flexibility because they added the country hydromet in addition to the other phases. So you have to be flexible in terms of what you're doing. And I think also very importantly, the value chain, you've got to consider the entire value chain when you're looking at the national contribution plan. So I know everybody's mentioning basic observation network, but you've also got to take into account your human capacity requirements, your ICT requirements, and also your sustainability going forward. So it's quite important, particularly when you consider, for example, human capacity, the gender issue, and I don't think those things come out clearly in, and it's something that should definitely be considered. I think also importantly for what we learned from the process is that we think it's better if you look at your regional WIGOS centers and let those centers be peer advisors to the people within their ambit, and that's what we found to be quite useful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, both for being here and for that great work in those countries in your region. We actually have another supporter to the work in Mozambique, but unfortunately on screen. Cindy McCain, unfortunately, can't be with us in person, but has provided a video message about World Food Programme's support to the work in Mozambique and SOFF in general. So can we have the video, please?
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. If we want to stem the rising tide of hunger, we need to scale up climate forecasting and early warning systems with the same urgency we bring to disaster relief operations. This means we need to strengthen the critical lines of defense that stand between vulnerable people and the preventable loss of their lives and livelihoods. WFP is uniquely positioned to enhance the investments made through the Systematic Observations Financing Facility. As the only humanitarian agency in the SOFF partnership, we can ensure its services reach the most vulnerable communities wherever they live. We're proud to partner with SOFF in nations across Africa and the Caribbean. I want to thank you for your $7.5 million contribution announced today. And I'm grateful to the government of Mozambique for their strong partnership on climate action. These funds will allow us to expand our joint work supplying tailored climate information to farmers in Mozambique and setting up early warning systems to cushion vulnerable people from the impact of climate shocks. For WFP, SOFF is a unique partnership which empowers communities on the front lines of the climate crisis, protects lives, and reduces long-term humanitarian needs. We are so proud to support its vital work. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And indeed, great again to hear that story of, on the one hand, strengthening those basic systems, of course, with a sustainable finance mechanism behind it that will continue to support the delivery of those observations in the far future, but at the same time already building those systems that make it tangible, have an impact for those vulnerable communities, in this case in Mozambique. So thank you. I think we should leave the action for a moment and then bring signing print and pen to the desk here, because we have a couple of representatives here that I'd like to ask to come to the front right away. The representatives of the Adaptation Fund, the Climate Investment Funds, CRUISE, the Global Environment Facility, Green Climate Fund, UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund, and then I guess it will be you now instead of Marcus. I don't know if you can sign already today. So the partnership is critical here. SOFF is only one piece of a puzzle that requires many funds to work together. Your funds often require the data, the networks to function with your work. So collaboration is needed, and one thing we have here is a collaboration that will make SOFF work, but also will enable many other of your investments to be much more effective. So Jennifer, let me start with you. You're actually running the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund that is enabling SOFF to work. Can you share a bit of your perspective on this exciting collaboration?
Absolutely. Thanks, Martin, and thanks and congratulations to everyone in this room for the part you play in SOFF. It is really an absolutely impressive and dynamic partnership as we've seen so far. Our role, as you were saying, Martin, is an enabler. The Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office is the fiduciary and the administrator of the SOFF Multi-Partner Trust Fund. That's a lot of words, but in short, what it is a way of making a potentially complex partnership operate quickly, efficiently, and smartly. And that's what we help enable, and that's really thanks to a smart design, the type of focus that you were outlining at the beginning, a coalition of really dedicated, committed partners that are focused on their assets, and that complementarity that has been highlighted. So we don't have time. Time is running out. Time has already run out on many fronts, and therefore there's really no time left for inefficiencies, duplications, silos, all the kinds of things that create inefficiencies. So this approach and what SOFF has put together and what the Multi-Partner Trust Fund approach allows is a harmonized single entry into a multiplier effect of what we see with 28 peer country relationships, 12 donor countries, 5 UN agencies, 5 multilateral development banks, the 5 global climate funds coming together with their assets, but how do you make it run that fast? So that means that kind of financial instrument efficiency, keeping the costs down and helping enable that. And I really, again, want to congratulate the team for making that happen.
Thank you so much. We will have the signature page here up front. I'm going to ask all of the others just one very simple question. How will SOFF benefit your work with the countries that you work with? And I don't know if there's a particular order to I think you're all as important to this, but I'll start with Mikko Ollikainen. Last time we met was in Washington when I was still with the International Red Cross and you were representing the Adaptation Fund, and we were talking about very concrete, specific deliverables in many of these countries to, in the end, work on that climate development humanitarian continuum. You know, here signing the SOFF agreement, it's great to see you again. But that might already hint at why this is important to you and why you're excited to be here. But I'm keen to hear how this is going to benefit your work.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, so the Adaptation Fund is proud to be one of the founding partners of the SOFF partnership and one of the members of the governing body as well. The objectives of SOFF are very much aligned with those of the Adaptation Fund to increase climate resilience, equip vulnerable communities with early warning systems. 20% of the Adaptation Fund portfolio has already gone to disaster risk reduction and early warning systems. And we see great potential, and we commit to this partnership with SOFF and with other climate funds to work together to deliver towards the ambitions of the early Warnings for All initiative as well. So we very much look forward to working with SOFF. Thank you.
I'll invite you to sign now, while I also introduce your colleague from the Climate Resilience, the Climate Resilience Program Lead from the Climate Investment Funds, Kwasi Emmanuel Kwadio. So same question to you. How will this benefit your work?
Thank you very much. We have at the Climate Investment Fund, we have a program called the Pilot Program of Climate Resilience that has been implemented over the last 15 years. So we have the experience. We have been providing data information system. So we think that through this partnership will provide this experience. I think it's very important that we learn from what have been implemented, what are the results, what are the impacts, so that we can scale up through this partnership. So we are very proud to be here and to sign this agreement to support the SOFF. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and I'll invite you to sign as well. Now, the next fund, Cruise, was launched when we all celebrated the Paris Agreement. It's a real pleasure to have John Harding with us. We go back a long time, again, on these same intersections. I'm sure you have exciting stories to tell about how this benefits Cruise.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you also to the SOFF colleagues for this cooperation framework. So from a Cruise perspective, we really look forward to working hands in hands with SOFF to translate this cooperation framework into very tangible action on the ground for the people who are most, and the countries who are most exposed to the climate change impacts. There's a very strong complementarity between Cruise and SOFF. We need the SOFF data to produce the better forecasts and predictions, and for us to deliver the services that we basically have been set up to provide. So it's an extremely important component. And I would just add that I think the spirit and the principles contained in this cooperation framework are also extremely important. If we're going to collectively be able to respond to what the SG has asked us to do, double the speed, double the energy involved in this early warning for all, we're going to have to also double the level of cooperation here. And I'd just like also to reflect one of, I think, the mechanisms that's going to allow us to do that is a cooperation with the Green Climate Fund, where we're partnering to facilitate access to additional financing, to build up on successes of our country programs through GCF SAP scaling up framework. And I think that's a very good reflection of those principles that are included in this cooperation framework. So thank you very much for that.
Lovely. So thanks also for your signature here. And from a very dedicated, targeted fund established in Paris, I would say almost as an early warnings for all avant la lettre in 2015 already, we go to a very big fund with many big aspirations, but also now contributing to early warnings for all and to SOFF. So it's a pleasure to introduce Hong Patterson, the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Operations Officer of the Green Climate Fund.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. So I guess, when I think about our partnership, and it's so interesting to hear everyone talking about collaboration, and I see that the four climate verticals are here just after having declared that collaboration and dedication to making, to bridging that coherence and complementarity gap. And so for us, SOFF is the same way, and thank you, John, for bringing this up. SOFF provides that data, but there is still observational data gaps, there's still information data gaps. And so for us, our participation in that is to really be able to help scale that up and bridge those gaps. We have already invested $1 billion, nearly $1 billion in early warning systems. And I see many of our contributors here, so thank you very much for a successful replenishment thus far. And as part of that second investment cycle, we'll be doubling up that investment. So we'll be looking to also support 60 developing countries to provide the early warning systems information that they desperately need. So thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Speaking to the ambition that we all share, and wonderful to have you here. And then on to the Global Environment Facility, last but not least, I would say, because you were the earliest global fund to fund. I remember I was working with the World Bank on adaptation in Kiribati around 2000, I think, and 2001. And then there was the Special Priority on Adaptation, the SPA. Anyone knows that acronym? You're all good at acronyms, but the SPA might have disappeared by now in many of your memories. But it was groundbreaking and also innovative in setting the scene on a landscape that is now so diverse, so complementary, and so strong. So it's wonderful to see the GEF continuing to provide leadership and also contributing to the SOFF. Can you share your perspective on how this fits your work today?
Thank you so much. My name is Alok Barnwala. I work as a senior climate change specialist. Glad to represent Jeff today on behalf of our CEO, Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, who couldn't come here. He has sent his apologies, but he is very supportive. I just wanted to start by saying that weather forecasts, early warning systems, and climate information services are so vital in meeting urgent adaptation needs. And that is why it is one of the priorities since beginning of the two funds, the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund that were created and that is managed by the Jeff. So we believe this declaration will accelerate collective action among all the funds with WMO to really to make this data, the information more accessible to the vulnerable communities and decision makers. So it's an extension of our partnership. It is going to strengthen, collectively, it will help developing countries access information in a more comprehensive way, avoiding duplication with more coordinated support, addressing all the aspects of climate information for communities. So we are very excited to sign this declaration, and we look forward to working with all the partners. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. If I may invite you to sign. And I guess, Pauline, you'll be signing for Marcus and for the SOFF. We've already heard why SOFF is keen to receive this funding, and I'm sure you'll put it to good use. And this partnership spirit is so important in all of this. So it's wonderful to have you all here. I think we'll have a quick photo opportunity before you can all leave the stage. But thank you again for the great collaboration and the partnership. Thank you all. And now, these funds in the end are supported by countries. And I'm very happy to acknowledge those supporters. We started with a few of them, and we have a few more of them in store here for you today. Starting with Anne-Beate Twinreim, the Minister of International Development in Norway. It's a pleasure to welcome you again. You were one of the early supporters. I think you've already provided 2 rounds of support. You're here again. Is there something else you would like to announce today?
It's a no-brainer, right? Thank you, moderator. Good to see you all. Norway is a proud and dedicated supporter to the Early Warning for All initiative, making sure that everyone in the world is covered by early warning by 2027. And that is why Norway is announcing an extra 50 million to SOFF. It's about 4.5 million US dollars. Also, Norway will be joining the cruise and contributing 50 million Norwegian crowns, that is approximately 4.5 million US dollars to cruise. So thank you for the job you're doing. I think our friend from South Africa put it very well, talking about the whole value chain. Yes, data collection, analysis, communication, but if we don't walk that last mile to the farmer, to the fisherman, then we haven't done our job. So I'm happy to announce that with this contribution, we are contributing to the whole value chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both your immense support, but also your leadership in making this happen across the community. And I know that leadership also extends to your Med service. I was the one with him asking questions about making our European data available to all of these countries faster even than the roadmap that we already had. So I know he's a leader too. So thank you for the Norwegian support on all fronts. Then let's continue to Finland. And we know Petri Talas himself, the World Meteorological Organization Secretary General, who's been spearheading this initiative, will be heading back to Finland to the meteorological agency there. So you're very lucky. Your early warnings will be good. But how are you contributing to the global ones?
Thank you very much. Yes, you are absolutely right. We have a long tradition in Finland on both developing our meteorology. I think it's also has to do with our harsh conditions. We are kind of reliant on it. Also to say that Finland is a very, very strong supporter of SOFF and of course for the Secretary General's Early Warnings for All initiative. So it's a great pleasure to be here, and I would also like to thank both our hosts as well as the organizers of this event. So maybe just a few words on, I have figured it out. I think, the fact that we are all standing also, I think there is this idea that we will cut down on our speeches as well. I think there is an underlying idea there. So I will try to be very brief. I know we have been standing for a while. So Finland has so far financed the improvement of weather and climate services in over 15 national meteorological and hydrological services around the globe. In SOFF, the Finnish Meteorological Institute is providing peer advisory services for 11 readiness and 2 investment phase countries, meaning we are working together with the national counterparts of SOFF beneficiary countries to provide SOFF outputs and build capacity. The Finnish Meteorological Institute has already collaborated with many of these countries, those countries that we are working with, through our bilateral cooperation on which the SOFF is now able to build on. The SOFF multi-stakeholder approach with a number of peer advisors and implementing entities provides a clear added value. The long-term support of peer advisors and involvement of multilateral organizations and funds for further scaling up the investments are ingredients for enhanced sustainability and impact. Lastly, I want to commend SOFF and its partners for the fast takeoff. We can't wait for further progress and to see the impact SOFF can deliver in terms of contributing to early warnings for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kirsten Stendahl, the Special Envoy for Climate and Environment of Finland. Sorry, I forgot to mention that at the start. And I think the standing here is indeed partly because we are keen to just have fairly short speeches because we got so many supporters here with us today, but also because we want to give the impression of the fact that we're restless. We don't want to stay seated, we have to get to work. So I think that's a good spirit that we're sharing here together. Let me go straight to Antonio Nieto. Now, where are you? Oh, there, great. Antonio, welcome. At COP27, the Spanish presidency announced a contribution to SOFF. Why is it important to you?
Well, thank you first for the invitation, and apologies from Minister Rivera. She cannot make it here today, but why is important SOFF for Spain? I mean, we've been very supportive from the very beginning. We think that this initiative was very much demanded, and we believe that very much needed. I think Secretary General from the United Nations, different representatives, head of states of different countries, they demanded to have more and better observations. So I think it's an excellent initiative. For Spain, this is good. This is an initiative that we are supporting. We believe it strengthens our adaptation and resilience to the world of climate. Many other colleagues have already said that. For Spain, it's also an initiative very interesting because we play an important role, geographically speaking, linking Europe with Africa, and we believe that we can play a more dynamic and more active role with these countries, but also with Latin American countries, because we have had this relationship with them, permanent and historical, and we can perhaps be more active and more dynamic with them through this initiative. And very much linked to this former argument is that, of course, this collaboration to SOFF is one of the important lines of actions of our development cooperation strategy that we follow in Spain, that we believe we can expand and multiply these efforts to assist other countries. But the main reason to be here is because we believe in it. We believe that this is a great initiative, that we can help, we can make the difference to many countries, helping them to early warning system, sorry, and to develop these adaptation efforts that they are doing, and also contributing to the food security and energy mitigation. So thank you very much for counting with Spain.
Deliver, expand, and multiply. That sounds like a good credo for this event. The last but not least, Leonore Gewessler, Federal Minister of Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology of Austria. You have also been a supporter, and you're the last speaker, so much has already been said, but Austria has been a particular supporter of SOFF, and I know my colleague there has been very supportive, but very keen to hear your thoughts on SOFF.
I could be extremely short now by simply saying because we're there because it's a no-brainer, as you said in the beginning, but maybe a couple of words. I think with the impact of the climate crisis becoming more and more urgent and felt across the globe, there's two things we need to do. One is we finally need to get the mitigation part right, so the name of the game is fossil fuel phase out, also for this conference. And the second thing is adaptation is key. We need to support those who are at the front lines. And SOFF is just a really, really good example of that, how this can be put in practice. And so for me, for three reasons. One is that it uses know-how of the global south to really meet an urgent requirement in the global north, to meet an urgent requirement in the global south. It's really an added value, and this is my second point, I couldn't put it better than my Norwegian colleague. We go the last mile. So we actually do something that's useful for people on the ground to better plan, to better prepare for sectors like agriculture, tourism, you name it, to actually ultimately save lives. And the third thing, it's a different kind of cooperation, which I really appreciate a lot. It's not just a 3 or 5 year project cycle, it's a long and close cooperation that lasts. And one point that I find extremely important, this is not a one-way street. Cooperation is something where both sides have something to win and something to benefit from. And for us, of course, the data we collect makes our collective response, our collective knowledge base, what we're discussing here in this conference, much more solid, much more sound, and helps us also to give better answers. That's why Austria is so committed to SOFF, and maybe since he's standing there, also because of the person right there, the former head of our meteorological service, who's been one of the brains behind this idea.
Indeed. So kudos to Austria, including their efforts in the World Meteorological Organization. I mean, you didn't specify the specific countries, but I know one of the countries you're supporting is South Sudan, which brings us full circle. Minister Mark Harberts mentioned the Water at the Heart program. We were discussing the peer support to South Sudan, which is provided by the Austrian Meteorological Agency. So you see all of these collaborations already taking shape as networks. In the end, in some of the places that we wouldn't always pick as the easiest ones to get started on these agendas. And I think that also very much characterizes our common spirit and our common action and our current delivery already on the ground. So thank you so much for that support. And once again, to be continued. I want to acknowledge, alongside the donors that we have heard from and that are here in the room, some other initial SOFF funders that we have not had the privilege of having here present in person: Canada, Denmark, the Nordic Development Fund, and the United States of America. And the Nordic Development Fund, in fact, is preparing a second pledge as we speak. We would appreciate everyone's support getting SOFF also recognized in the COP outcome. And as noted in the beginning, this is a partnership that seems to be taking off and needs expansion in two directions. On the one hand, getting to that 400 million target to really make sure we can do this as needed in all these places. But secondly, also making the connection between that 400 million investment and all of these other places where that data then needs to be put to use. And I think we heard some really exciting examples of that already. So please put it in the COP outcomes, but also help us mobilize more partners, do more of this. We have some final thoughts from the International Fund for Agriculture Development, Joe Puri, the Associate Vice President from EFAD. Oh, there you are. So lovely to hear from you as the final speaker here. Also how you are collaborating with SOFF as an implementing agency and putting this to use in your work in EFAD.
Thank you very much, Martin. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The International Fund for Agricultural Development is focused on smallholder farmers and rural development, and we work in more than 80 countries. And the reason that our partnership with SOFF is particularly critical to us is because early warning systems are a very data-driven way for us to essentially focus on what is really key for us, which is adaptation and building resilience. And the data-driven and evidence-driven approaches that we've used within the International Fund have also shown that as a consequence of our investments in climate, early warning systems, insurance programs that are also predicated on facilities that are provided by SOFF, we've been able to increase the resilience of populations in rural areas by more than 13 to 14%. And this is significant, statistically significant, and which also shows our focus on data and data-driven approaches. But this has come about primarily because we focused on infrastructure provision and focused on training and focused on building those resilience-based approaches. So we're really thankful to SOFF for pioneering this multi-donor partnership and this engagement with agencies such as ours, but also because of the linkage that it provides with the Loss and Damage Fund. On adaptation, which is clearly the focus for the International Fund, it's really important and critical so that we can avoid losses. But once those losses do occur, whether economic or non-economic, SOFF also provides us with the data sets to understand as to the consequences of climate events and the extent to which they can be attributed to climate. So it's really important to think about the non-economic as well as economic damage that occurs as a consequence of climate events, and SOFF data can really help with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That closes us off. I'm not going to try and summarize all these wonderful interventions, also because we're already a little bit over time, but it was because of all the passion and all the support demonstrated here today. Thank you all. Let's continue this exciting journey, and I look forward to seeing all the results emerge on the ground as we've so excitedly shared this hour. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the COP.